Hello, and thank you very much for clicking on this movie review. I wanted to put this disclaimer out in front of the reviews that were going to be released this week because all of them deal with some would consider very sensitive material, especially what has happened in the last couple of weeks. This week I am scheduled to review all of the films in the Has Fallen trilogy, and all of them, of course, deal with the taking of the US president or taking of the White House, taking of Washington, D.C., which a couple of weeks ago was an actual reality due to some domestic terrorism. I film all these reviews in advance. That allows me to keep them coming out and being published on a regular basis for all of you. So I had recorded all of these reviews before January 6th, when a bunch of terrorists decided to storm the Capitol because they were protesting because they lost an election, and their man lost an election and wouldn't concede to what is a fair election in every sense of the word. So that's why I don't comment on the events that happen. I actually think I make a couple of comments in these reviews this week that I'm scared and worried about anything that may happen during the inauguration. I wanted to release this in honor of our new president, Joe Biden, and thankfully he's taking office and maybe we can get back to some stability in the White House and in our government in this country, more so than what we've had in the last 4 years. But I think I make comments about how I'm just scared. Hey, I'm recording these ahead of time. I'm not sure if something does happen. And actually I'm recording this disclaimer well ahead of the inauguration. So hopefully these domestic terrorists that decided to storm the Capitol on January 6th don't try to take matters into their own hands again on January 20th. This is to honor all of the Secret Service members who dedicate their lives in protection of an office that should be viewed as an honorable position and very important. Definitely doesn't seem so, especially in the last 4 years. This channel is meant to be something that is fun, something that is honest when it comes to movies and film reactions, but I felt I would be doing myself a disservice by not addressing what has happened and the subject matter that is hitting so close to home now with what happens in these films to what is actually happening in real life today in this country. I think we have a lot of questions that we need to ask ourselves as a country and as a people. That these domestic terrorists were able to get all the way into the Capitol building, storming people's offices, and only a couple of people died. This was a Black Lives Matter protest. The casualties would have been tremendous, and we would have been seeing a lot more people lose their lives in the last couple of weeks. I think that's something that we need to ask ourselves as a country. You see a lot of news reports of people saying, how were these terrorists able to do this to the Capitol building? I think you just look at the color of their skin, and there's your answer right there. This country is not perfect. It's never been perfect, but it has been a beacon of hope and a beacon of fair democracy for the last couple of centuries, and that was in question a couple of weeks ago. I'm angry, and I'm sad, and I just want to hold those domestic terrorists and everyone who supported and fanned the flames and entertained the idea of fraudulent elections and entertained the warped demonic mind of Donald Trump. Anyone that entertained him should be held accountable. I try not to be political on this channel at all. This channel is meant to be a celebration of film. Film is a universal language. It allows us chances to escape. It allows us chances to search for knowledge, to search for education on maybe a certain subject matter or a morality issue or a political issue. It's just sometimes the subject matter of those films can hit hard to home, and I think these Has Fallen films will definitely do that for some people who may click on this review. I always sign off all my reviews with be well and be good to each other, and I don't think those words need to be said more than today. So before we get started, please be well, be good to yourself, and be good to each other. We can get through this, but in the meantime, hopefully you have a little fun by checking out the rest of this review. Take care, guys. Where's Scrunchy Face? I miss Scrunchy Face. He was my favorite character. I want Scrunchy Face. Angel Has Fallen, released in 2019 and is directed by Rick Roman Waugh, who has also directed such films like In the Shadows, Felon, and Snitch. He's also set to direct the next installment in this Has Fallen franchise called Night Has Fallen, and that's Night with an N, so I don't know what it's referencing. Now, if it was Night with a K, I would assume that Banning would be killed or be close to death, and he would have to crawl back to life and fight someone. And this is wrapping up our celebration of the inauguration this week in this country with our new American president, and we are honoring all of the work that these Secret Service agents do all throughout every single presidency that we have in keeping that person safe. And that's Mike Banning's job here in this movie, but doesn't really do a good job of it. And this film is starring, of course, again, reprising his amazing role of Mike Banning, is Gerard Butler. Morgan Freeman returns as President Trumbull, Nick Nolte, and Danny Huston. Secret Service agent Mike Banning is dealing with the reality that his body is getting older. So old that he has to pop painkillers every few hours in order to do his job of protecting the American president. Things are also not looking good for Banning, as President Trumbull barely survives an assassination attempt during a retreat. But what comes as the biggest surprise behind this attack, that it seems to be conceived from the mastermind of Mike Banning. So now Banning is on the run from the FBI, trying to avoid being captured, and also discovering who is behind this assassination attempt, really. So right away with this film, we get a different feel here. There's definitely no global situation. There's no big domestic situation with, say, the White House falling. There's no global situation where several different world leaders are being taken out. And I think once we get to a third installment of a franchise, I think it's very important to change things up a bit, to go down a different plot route than what you have done the previous few times. And I definitely commend this film for that. It made this film feel refreshing. Even though it's part of this universe, it made it feel like it's its own separate thing, and I like that. That being said, though, with simplifying the situation, it does make this story and this plot and this conflict very, very predictable. I basically gave you a spoiler already when I read out the cast list and said that Danny Huston is in this movie. If Danny Huston is in a movie, he is the bad guy. He has never not been the bad guy. He is the bad guy. Especially in the beginning of this movie when we find out that he is actually best friends, or at least old army friends, of Mike Banning. Oh yeah, he is definitely the bad guy here. Sure enough, the assassination attempt comes from Danny Huston. That's not a spoiler, you knew that. Even if you haven't seen this movie, you know that. And to be honest, he's not the best planner of an assassination attempt on a president, because when you dive into the situation and what he does and the offshore accounts that they have, I think it'll turn out quite easy, actually, to find out later on that he was the one doing it. It was not Mike Banning. So in terms of movie villain, I feel like this is a downgrade even from London Has Fallen. I think those people from the first two installments of this franchise are more menacing and more evil than this one that we get here. But again, I like the groundedness that this situation has. And the cinematography here is different than what we've recently had in the other films. There's a lot of hard lighting, so there's a lot of times where we see like an overexposed side of a character, and then we see shadows on the other side. We see a ton of shaky cam. Oh my god, it's almost every other scene, especially when we get to the action scenes. Shaky cam, shaky cam, shaky cam. And I like shaky cam, and for me to say that, hey, there's too much of it here, that's saying something. I like shaky cam because it makes you, as the audience member, feels like you're right there with Mike Banning, going through the staircases and going around corners. You feel like you're right there with him. But again, I think it's a little too much. Morgan Freeman, again, does return here as now our president. He's not in this movie a lot because once the assassination attempt happens, his character actually goes into a coma, so he's basically comatose for basically the rest of the movie up until the climax. So we're relying entirely on Mike Banning here, running through the woods, fighting off different truckers and private militia, and trying to outrun the FBI, who's ran by Jada Pinkett Smith, who I forgot to mention in the cast list, so I apologize with that. She actually gives a pretty good performance here. I don't think the character is that impressive, but I don't think that's on her. I think it's more on the writing. And Nick Nolte is here playing basically Nick Nolte. He's a drunken loner who lives out in the woods all by himself. He has rigged his little hut with a bunch of explosions. Basically, Nick Nolte is Nick Nolte. I have to give the prop for the fight scenes. These ones feel more gritty and more realistic than the ones that we've previously gotten in the other two installments. Olympus Has Fallen, it actually felt really cool with the tight quarters of the White House. London Has Fallen, that was a little spectacular. It was a little far-fetched in some situations and how characters survived certain explosions. It was a little far-fetched. Here, this 100% feels real. There's nothing here that is fantastical. Everything is just hand-to-hand combat and here on the ground. And I could see how someone may watch this movie and go, oh, where's my explosions? This is nothing like what we got with the first two films. Where's all the stuff? Again, I like that we're getting a different tone and a different style here. I think it keeps this whole concept and this character of Mike Banning fresh. It's not always about upping the ante and escalating your character's situation. Sometimes all you have to do is just change the style and change the storytelling device, and you're golden with your franchise. And by doing that, you don't have to rely on going back to the well with your terrible visual effects that you've had in the recent two installments. You don't get a ton of it here. There is a pretty bad green screen effect in the final battle, the final knife fight. It wouldn't be an Has Fallen installment without terrible CGI, and there's the obligatory one. But I enjoy this character. I enjoy the majority of this plot. Is it predictable? Absolutely. But in my book, predictable doesn't mean bad, because I go along for the ride, and if you keep me engaged throughout that ride, I'm happy. Were there more downtimes with this movie than the other installments? Yes. So I wasn't really expecting that. Maybe that took it out of it for me a little bit. It annoys me that they attempted to tell this story, that Danny Houston's character is good, and that he was a good soldier and a good friend of Mike Banning back when they were old army buddies. And they were trying to hide his voice and hide his face for just a little bit there when we were starting to see different people in this assassination attempt in the computer room. They were hiding him just a little bit, and I was like, why even do that? We know he's bad. We know he's the villain here. You ain't fooling anybody. And actually, you're trying also to hide his boss. I know exactly who his boss is. We saw him in the Oval Office right away at the beginning of this movie. Come on. I won't spoil that here with this review, but if you're watching this movie and you see this character on screen, you go, you look like a weasel. You're behind all of this. And oh, hey, look, you are. Simple, predictable, but also I appreciate the direction that it's going. I like the cinematography, I like the fight scenes, I like the action scenes that we get here. It feels grounded, it feels more real. I think this movie was a fun time. Is it something that's going to latch on and stick with me years down the road? No, not as much. I think the only one of this franchise that's going to do that is Olympus Has Fallen, but I still think this movie is a good time. I'm going to give Angel Has Fallen 3.5 out of 5 Blu-rays.
I am above average.
Alright everyone, now comes my favorite part in my videos where I pick which movie I'm going to be watching next. And the next one is actually a screener that I received from GingerNutsOfHorror.com. It's this first screener that I'm reviewing for them, a great website where you can go to see a bunch of reviews and listings of everything in the world that's all horror. There's books, there's movies, there's TV show, anything horror, you can find it there on that website. And they gave me this screener of a film called Beasts Clawing at Straws. A South Korean picture that looks kind of menacing. There's a bunch of stills that I've gotten of a dead body in a tub with blood spilling out of it and a woman holding like a saw or something. So guess I know what I'm in for. But I love Korean cinema, so we'll definitely check that one out next time. If any of you have recommendations of films that you want me to review on here, you can leave your recommendation below this video, or go to my Facebook page, my Instagram, or my Twitter, leave your recommendation there. And if I have access to it, I will watch, review it, and give you a shout on the channel. And if you really want me to do your recommendation as quickly as I possibly can, bypass the whole random generator, you can make a PayPal donation on the main page of my YouTube channel. Any size donation will do. Just attach your movie with your donation, and if I have access to it, I will watch, review it, and give you a shout on the channel. So guys, have you seen Angel Has Fallen? What did you think about it? Or if you've never seen it before and you stumbled across it because of this video, then comment below, let me know what you thought about it. And as always, if you like what you see here, if you like my take on movies, then hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit that bell so you'll know the next time I'm releasing my next movie review. So guys, I will see you next time with my review of Beasts Clawing at Straws. So in the meantime, be well, be good to each other, and go watch a movie. Take care, guys.